So another BlizzCon has been and gone with, as there tends to be every second one, a major announcement about a new expansion, as well as another major announcement as well, of course. So what I'm going to do in this video is go over my review, particularly of the Q&A. Now, first of all, in case people don't know, there was a bit of news as well relating to content a little bit sooner. And that is that Antorus will be releasing on the 28th of November. It's basically the last reset of November. I guess that would be the 29th in Europe. I haven't checked days, but usually when they give the date, it refers to the Tuesday, which happens in North America. So it's 2 weeks later than it could have been and a week later than it was expected to be. I suppose part of the reason for that is if it's coming out with 7.3.5, then, as they talked about at BlizzCon, there's other features coming with 7.3.5 as well, which includes the scaling of zones. So what I'm going to do here, as I say, is go through some of the more sensible questions that came up at the Q&A. A lot of the questions that come up there, it does get quite annoying, actually, when you've been watching this over and over again. Some of the questions are questions that are asked to which we already know the answer, so we learn nothing. Some of the questions that are asked are ones that have potential, but because of the way they're asked, it allows for answers to be given that are not helpful at all. You get very few actually good questions, and you get very few questions that elicit responses that are actually, oh wow, we learned something there. But let's go through what we did find out. So the first question was about war fronts. Are they similar to invasions? What are the rewards? Things like that. So what's quite clear about this is they haven't actually pinned down the details of war fronts yet. Apart from anything else, they said that they need the testing, the alpha and beta testing to go through to really determine anything, particularly how long they're expected to last. We don't know how long they're going to last. But they're not the sort of thing which you just go into. My main fear with Warfronts, with it being 20-man, is, well, that's the sort of thing you would do in a guild, ideally, if you've got a PvE guild. So you're in a raid guild, for example. You imagine you've got your so many days for raiding, say 3 in our case. Are we going to be coerced effectively into doing this extra content? Because that's always my fear. For obviously, yes, I know this doesn't apply to the majority of players, but I do come at it from a raider's point of view. Are we going to be coerced again, like we have been in Legion, to do content outside of what we really want to do in order to do this? Now, it doesn't sound like that will be the case, because they talked about the fact that there's a build up to it. This idea of when you prepare for war, you've got to build resources, things like that. Now, I don't know how we're going to do these resources things, but it sounds like it's the sort of thing where there's time between them. You can't just spam them, put it that way. So it doesn't sound like it's the sort of thing we're going to be doing over and over again. They also talked about the fact that this is not necessarily going to be a super regular piece of content for us. It's a feature of the next expansion, but it's not necessarily the thing we're going to be spending loads of our time in. It's just a point of interest. But the vast majority of the way it's going to work in reality, they haven't worked out yet. And that will be the case for everything, because ultimately we haven't done this testing. That's why it's always a nonsense when people talk, oh, maybe it'll come out before summer and things like this. The fact is that the expansions that come out for Blizzard, you're usually pretty good because it's had so much testing. A good 9 months of open, like non-NDA alpha/beta testing, that has not begun yet. And also, even though they mentioned the alpha and beta, I don't think that they mentioned when it's coming out. Like BlizzCon 2 years ago, they said it'd be out by the end of the year, which it was. Well, they actually gave the impression it'd be out within a few weeks after that BlizzCon, which it sort of wasn't really, but it is, well, it depends what you mean by weeks. But it was certainly out before the end of the year. I don't think any such suggestion has been made with this one, so it may be that open alpha doesn't go out imminently, but maybe it does. Next one is this was a bit of news. Again, it was a question that was asked at the Q&A to which we already sort of knew the answer, but it was nice to get something solid there as well about, is there another stat squish? This has been at the top of people's minds for a while, and the answer is yes. And this came a little bit out of the blue, so to speak, even though it's something that people have wanted them to talk about, because the last time Blizzard talked about this, they were talking about the idea that maybe they don't need to be, because you can just use different prefixes as long as the computer can handle the numbers. But they are going to do one, and it's a fairly hefty one. Because what they're going to be doing is not, it's not just a stat squish as happened a few years ago. They said the problem with that is it went back up again very quickly, or there were weird jumps as well, where you suddenly gained 100 item levels just switching between expansions. What they should have done and what they're doing this time is an item level squish to go with it. So we're going to be getting our 1,000 item level pieces, or a few pieces anyway, in the next raid. But then in the next expansion, it's all going way down. It seems to be reduced by about 2/3. So going down to round about 1/3 of current values. So right down, going right down there. And as they said, the purpose of this is not to nerf. Everything, relatively speaking, power-wise, will remain the same. It's just about keeping those numbers sane, as they described. Now, the next one is the thing I'm mad as hell about. The question was asked, and I thought this was a stupid question. But then the answer came out. Someone asked, is Anduin a paladin? Well, I mean, here's the thing. Anduin, we know he was a priest as he was growing up when he was that weeny little kid, little toad. No, we don't want him in the paladin order. But as he seems to have grown up, he seems to have turned into a much more sensible character, more fully rounded character. And actually, a bit of respect for him. And you think to yourself, well, of course he's a paladin now. He's even using a sword. He's wearing armour in the cinematic. Full plate armour. Big old lion on his head. And his father's sword. Of course he's a paladin. I mean, he may... Well, just because there's not been any storyline where he's been inducted into the Order of Paladins, seems to be largely irrelevant. But the answer came back, no, he's a priest. He's a priest. It's just that as a hero character, there's things he can do that a normal priest can't. Like wear plate armor and carry swords, for example. Which you can sort of go. I mean, they can do what they want. It's their own storyline. But it seemed a little bit strange to me, especially after banging the class fantasy drum all this time, that there isn't the same distinction along class lines amongst the character, the hero NPCs that there is within the player ranks. So, yeah, I'm... No. But they've said he's a priest, so we have to sort of say, all right, he's a priest. Next one was a comment about artifact power and knowledge and how it influences Azeroth. So the idea is, for those who don't know, we're ditching our artifact weapons. We're getting an artifact neck instead. But is the system going to be exactly the same as it was, where we've got to get artifact power, which is actually Azeroth this time, to boost it up, and needing artifact knowledge as a way to stop the people who are farming loads getting way ahead and all the rest of it. So what they've said is... There's a few things here. First of all, there's not going to be the mega numbers that we've got now with AP. Now, they didn't say how they're going to manage that, because remember, the reason why the values go up exponentially is simply because they don't want there to be a massive difference between the people who farm all day and every day for their AP and the people who just do a much more modest amount. They don't want a massive gap between those in terms of power. So they make it exponential to really put the brakes on the people screaming ahead and give you artifact knowledge each week so that the people who do a much more modest amount can keep at least on their coattails. So the other thing they said is about choices. They said that the choices were a lot cooler at the start of the expansion. I mean, there was, because, there was the path you took around your artifact. Which trait, you knew you were getting all the traits eventually, but which ones did you get first? And of course, when I was doing my Retribution Paladin guides, at the start of the expansion, part of those guides included the path to take around it. Now it doesn't. It's just like, which trait should I get first? Just get all of them. Just get all of them at once. All there is to it. And they want choices to go through at the expansion. So the way the choice is going to work with this Heart of Azeroth, which is the neck, is there's going to be, at the moment anyway, they didn't seem to give the impression that it's definitely set in stone. But at the moment, 3 pieces of armour that are affected by this neck. And those ones can't Titan Forge, by the way, because they're all sort of linked to this neck. And you get a choice of traits, for want of a better word, it's like the new semi-talent system. And that choice is the same sort of choice you're going to sort of be making throughout the expansions. You're not going to get everything. You are going to choose an effect. And then that sort of choice is sort of with you through the expansion. You may change your mind at various points based on whatever. But yeah, they didn't really pin down how they're going to ensure that you don't open up a massive gap. They didn't talk about weekly caps. I mean, weekly caps is one way to do it. It was something they really didn't want to do in Legion. But there were several things, several design philosophies they had for Legion, which they seem to be abandoning for the next expansion. Will this be one of them? We don't know. The other one was talking about raid buffs. Now, I'm going to do a separate video on this at some point, but thought process about bringing back raid buffs. So what they said is they thought there was something good about, you know, buffs going out before a boss. It's all harking back to the old days when that's what you do. You'd buff up before a boss. You don't really do that now. You eat from the feast. You take a health stone, maybe, and you get your pre-pot ready. Make sure your flask's on. So, but they said that they wanted to look at classes as unique and special and wanted to emphasise that. Now, I am going to have words about their choice of these ones when you compare some of them with, say, the Paladin one. Especially as they use the phrase, wouldn't it be nice if people say, oh, I'm happy that you're a Paladin. Yes. Not sure how many people are going to be happy about getting an armour buff. But there you go. Now, they have said that they don't want the buffs to be extreme, but they do want them to be worthwhile. So I can only imagine they're going to change the Paladin ones at some point. And you can bet your arse as soon as we get, like, alpha forums going, I'm going to be banging that drum until it happens. Next one, it says, so what about Titan Forging? So, we had the little news about legendaries. Again, something I want to talk about as a separate thing. But, you know, legendaries are basically going, completely going. The two, like, I suppose, really... I mean, there's three really contentious things about in Legion. Now, contentious doesn't mean everyone hates them. That's not at all true. Straight away, not at all true. But contentious where some people do and some people don't, like the Marmite effect. So, you know, the artifact power grind we've sort of talked about there. We don't know how that's going to be in the next one. They're seeming to suggest it's not going to be there to the same extent, but they have no details yet. Legendaries are going. That was obviously a very contentious point. Legendaries are going. And the other one would be Titan Forging, which, of course, is something that has been largely disliked by Mythic Raiders, not so much everyone else. I've said that before, and I'll say it again here. And the higher progressed you are as a Mythic Raider, the more of a problem you have with Titan Forging. But again, I mean, going into the detail of that is a subject for another video. But what they've said is they're going to tweak that system, but they're not really changing it. And I wouldn't have expected them to, because Titan Forging does what they want it to do. It means that you can go back and do old content and have some hopes for an upgrade. It's the reason why, you know, I still run Heroic Tomb of Sargeras. There is a chance of an upgrade. I don't expect one on any given run, but I do it enough and I'm bound to snag over the course of a tier the odd upgrade that sticks. And that's what Titan Forging does, and that's what they want it to do. So... But they did, yeah, again, going back to what I said before, the Titan Forging will not happen on the armor slots that are linked to the Heart of Azeroth, the artifact neck. They don't want anything wild going there. I would also like them to say that Titan Forging won't affect weapons. Potentially trinkets as well, but definitely weapons. But that doesn't sound like the sort of thing that they're going to be up for. Next one, it says, this is about character creation. I mean, I was quite pleased with some of the things they've talked about. For the purpose, I've always had this bee in my bonnet about, you know, the beginner experience is not terribly good. It sounds like they're going to improve it a bit. I still don't think it's going to be brilliant, but improve it a bit. And I was just starting a beginner's guide to WoW series as well, so that's on hold for a little while until I see how some of this is going to work out. And the question was asked, what are you going to do about character creation being quite archaic? Now, what I would take from that they mean is, and I've said this before, it's very primitive. Character creation is super primitive compared with a lot of modern games, and even some games that are not so modern. It really is the thing that you just look at. Character creation in World of Warcraft seems to me, if you got someone who's played other games, role-playing games, and they come to World of Warcraft, and... it would seem to me it's the equivalent of someone who's used to a flat screen television going back to an old like 1960s cathode ray tube black and white television with a screen that size. It really is, archaic is the right word for it. So what they said is, obviously we've got the zone scaling, but that's not to do with the character creation. They said allied races are the start to this. So that sounds like more options with the allied races than there are for the current races, and the other current races at some point they'll work on to catch up. Art Team, it says they looked at the allied races as a way that they could sort of push ahead with this. Now, they talked about the fact there's going to be more character customization. They mentioned upright orcs, for example. Now, that, to me, would still make it quite archaic. What character customization needs to be more modern is not just a few more choices of set templates. It needs to be actual customization, slidey bars, and for lots and more features than there currently are. So it doesn't... I'm not getting the impression that there really is going to be a more modern character creation system. It just sounds to me like they're going to give us more options, but they're nonetheless just templates we're choosing from. But we'll wait to see on that one. The next one was about adding Mythic Plus to old dungeons. And Blizzard said that they had been thinking about this for Time Walking. Now, here's the thing. I'm not sure I'm totally in favour of this. At first, it sounds quite cool, doesn't it? When Time Walking rolls around... You know, the fact that you could do some of those time walking dungeons, or indeed all of them, as Mythic Plus dungeons, sounds fantastic. However, I'm thinking at the moment that when that happens, then that's probably all people are going to be doing, that they're not going to be doing the Mythic Plus of the current dungeons. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I mean, you could argue time walking only comes around 1 week in the month, so it's not too bad. The other weeks, people will be doing those. But they are... You know, this isn't just something that went, good idea, we'll think about it. This was an actual, yeah, we've been talking about this. So that may well be a thing that when Time Walking rolls around, presumably still got the option of just doing them, signing up and doing the heroic versions, but also as Mythic Plus, for which there may be extra rewards for doing them as well. That might be of interest. Also on the issue of Time Walking, it was asked about the issue with each new expansion, we get another expansion's worth of Time Walking. So, for example, in the next expansion, we would be getting Warlords of Draenor Time Walking. They always do Time Walking for the expansion before the previous one. They'd never do it for the one that's just gone. And the person pointed out that the issue with this is with one Time Walking event a month, the gap between the ones you really want to do, especially, I suppose they didn't say this, but I suppose especially with Time Walking raids, because Time Walking Ulduar is supposed to be a thing next expansion. There's a greater gap between doing the content that you want to do. So as I said, there's only option of just during Time Walking time being able to do all of them. They did say they don't think they would just during Time Walking periods let you do whichever you wanted, but they did suggest there may be some consolidation possible. So maybe, I guess, I don't know whether that could mean that they make Time Walking every couple of weeks, so it's twice a month instead of once a month, or during Time Walking week there are 2 expansions worth available. They didn't really go into details on that one, but they did sort of suggest the potential for consolidation with that one, just because, yeah, we're getting greater and greater gaps between the ones that we want to do. For those who have a particular favourite, that is. So, on to the backpack. Now, this has been a thing. The backpack has been 16 slots ever since the start of the game. And with every expansion, apart from the last one, really, I suppose, with every expansion, it's always been possible to craft larger and larger bags. I think the largest bag you could get in vanilla was 18 slot. You could craft it, or you could get the Onyxia hide bag, drop off Onyxia. And then, you know, in TBC you could get 20 slot bags. Could you get 22 slot bags? I think you maybe have done the odd one. But anyway, it's got bigger as generally as expansions have gone, apart from very, very recently. But the backpack has stayed the same size, just 16 slots. Now, originally the argument there was when they were making World of Warcraft, they had to just get everyone at Blizzard. They got them off every other project to get World of Warcraft finished. So they weren't necessarily working through all the code in a methodical way. And some people who worked on it have gone now. And the issue was potentially increasing the size of the backpack could break everything in the game because of the way things are linked together. Cody stuff I don't know about. But what they've said is they think, and they said this before, that they think they can now do it. But what they're going to do is they're going to encourage us to look after our accounts via this. So they've said as a reward, they're not just going to expand the size of the backpack. They're going to have a slight increase to the size of the backpack for people who have an authenticator. So what an authenticator is, it's just a device. So when you're logging in, you put your password and stuff like that in. And then it'll ask you for an authenticator code. You press a button on this physical device, gives you a 6-digit code, you type that in. So it prevents people just nicking your password and logging in elsewhere, for example. So they said if you have one of these, then you get a slightly larger backpack. So just a little reward there. I imagine, they didn't say this, but I imagine the same sort of thing would apply if you just do it via SMS as well, because you do have the option. Sometimes when, you know, if I'm downstairs, for example, wanting to log on to WoW and my authenticator's upstairs, I have the option of saying, do you know what, just send the code to my mobile, I'll get it from there. So, you know, they may accept that as well as a way to do it. But what it means is you don't sign in just simply using your password. That you have to enter this code in, for which you need a physical device to generate the code. Again, presumably for this, I mean, people were talking at the time about, oh, Blizzard just trying to find a way to make more money. I don't think that's what it's about. I think it's because it's a major hassle for them dealing with hacked and compromised accounts. And an authenticator is seen as a way of really protecting your accounts. And it's something everyone should have. But they're going to try and sort of reward this a little bit. Now, with Battle for Azeroth being very faction v faction, the question inevitably was asked, will there be different raids based on those factions and stories and raids and things like that? Which, of course, is the obvious thing to add. The answer, of course, is always going to be no. And this has always been my argument with this nonsense cycle that we always have of Horde and Alliance working together, because the raids are an intrinsic part of the overall storyline and very often the culmination of those major storylines. But we do the same raids and the same bosses, and usually for the same reasons, because we have to have that common enemy, which inevitably means that the Horde and the Alliance, no matter how much individual NPCs may grumble about the other side, they're working together. Come, you know, phrase it how you like. We're working together when we're doing these raids. And then at the end of it, we seem to have a bit of a Barney, either at the end of an expansion or the beginning of the following expansion. We're all at war again, and it just goes round and round in this ridiculous cycle. So what they've said here is that there's obviously not going to be different bosses, but there are going to be different stories playing out, which is probably as far as they can go. So different motivations for wanting to kill those bosses potentially, I guess, is what they're looking at. And the storyline being different is the only thing they can do. And to be fair, that would be a significant enough departure from the last few expansions. It has been notable for quite a long time now that you don't get a very different leveling experience as Horde and Alliance. I have leveled as Horde and Alliance for the last 2 expansions because I played Horde partway through the last expansion and at the start of this expansion, then changed back to Alliance. So I have leveled up characters in both. And it's not a huge difference. There's very little difference. Because, remember, again, we're sharing quests and we're also sharing cinematics. You know, in-game cinematics. So, yeah, so they are talking about the fact that there's different storylines there. Okay. They have also talked about the fact that members of an opposite faction could be a raid boss. But they haven't said that that's definitely going to be the case. But I suppose that's another interesting thing they can do to emphasise the faction v faction thing. You know, maybe for Horde there's a particular raid where you're all killing the same bosses, but the very end boss is, say, Greymane, for example. And then for the Alliance, maybe we kill off, I don't know, Sylvanas. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so. Too major a character. Maybe Sourfang or someone like that, or, you know, Bane Bloodhoof. Although I don't think the Alliance have really got a problem with Bane Bloodhoof. So I don't think we'd want to kill him. Next one is about the classic servers now. So we got basically no details about this. They just said that it's going to be a thing at the opening ceremony. Haven't really talked about it since. So they did sort of ask a question, but again, it does sound like they are not 100% sure on exactly how they're going to do it. The question was asked, will the exploits and bugs from Classic WoW be fixed for the Classic servers? So what they've said is they're going to get a lot of community input on this, on what people actually want, which is great. And they said they want to recreate the experience, but they don't really want all the bugs and crashes and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, well, part of the experience was on patch day not being able to raid, so you took to the Realm forums to have a bit of a discussion. I mean, sure, they don't want to replicate that, but that was part of the experience. And the other thing, I felt I had to tweet this, the response to this is, if I don't fall into the Ironforge lag pit, then I'm not replicating the classic WoW experience of his. I mean, that was just because back then I was playing on a potato. I didn't have a dedicated game machine or even a stunningly good PC. It was a PC I'd had for some years. And I didn't have much memory in it. And yeah, sure, the pit between the bank and the auction house in Ironforge, whenever I tried to get across, like jump across, because I couldn't be bothered to go to the bridge, I fell in almost every time. The number of people that did as well, like you don't see anyone in there really these days. At the time, you saw people in there, you know, when they tried to get across. In. So yeah, it sounds like they want to do a cleaned up version of it. They've also talked about, you know, where do we pitch it? At what point do you pitch it? That's going to affect it as well. And they also said, you know, should UBRS be sort of, you know, which version should it be? For me, it should be the 15-man version. It was 15-man originally. I understand that they're going to set it probably at a patch where they tidied up the talent systems and changed the blessings to greater blessings. I'm not having that buffing 40 people every 5 minutes. No. But, you know, so set it from that point of view. But still have, I would think we should still have the dungeons and raids sort of as they should have been. And that means UBRS is 15-man. That's my opinion. So, in terms, the other thing, back into art stuff, last couple here. So, Worgens and Goblins, of course, people are talking about where's our updates. Again, people quite impatient about this one. It's obviously Worgens and Goblins were, apart from Pandaren, some of the later races to be added. So when they updated the other races, obviously those were the really old ones, so they needed doing first. Now the Goblins and the Worgen are behind. They are said that they are working on updates for that, but I wouldn't expect that soon. I wouldn't expect that at the expansion launch. They have basically made 6 new classes. Behave yourself. 6 new races. Effectively, these allied races, they're not... Well, they are basically new races. The other thing they've said as well, because the question was asked, so what do we do if we want to create one of these but we've filled up our character slots? Because at the moment, on each account, on each realm, you can have one of each class to fill it up. 12 classes. They've said, and this is amazing, that they are going to increase the number of characters we can have on a realm, on an account, by 6. So you could create one of each of the new allied races, a character of each of the new allied races for that. They really want to push the allied races thing, the storyline that comes in it, because people were asking as well, oh, why do Horde get the Nightborn? Why do Alliance get the Void Elves? I mean, that's actually the easiest question to answer, I think. We already know the reasons for that. But what they did say is, play it out. There's a storyline that explains all that as we go in there, even though we really know. So yeah, the Worgens and Goblins, obviously they are going to be on the back burner as a result of this, but the impression given is that once they've got all this done, that would be next. Whether that means later on in Battle for Azeroth, whether it means the following expansion, who knows, who knows. And the final thing, quite a small thing, was about, because they're increasing the amount of cross-realm tech, we've got the new BattleNet now where we're encouraged to form like little communities. So you can have your main guild, which is whatever it is, but you might have other groups that you want to create for doing like Mythic Pluses or something that's not been done in your guild. So they said, well, what about cross-realm trading, being able to trade flasks and stuff like that? And what they said is, obviously the main issue with that is the effect it could have on the economy. People trading cross-realm for the purposes of commerce and not, you know, because, I mean, we get the usual thing like I was in Heroic Tomb of Sargeras yesterday, cross-realm was a pug. And someone was asking, you know, does anyone have a tome? But what they really mean, does anyone from my realm have a tome? Because I wouldn't have been able to trade them one, for example. I'm on a different realm. So, you know, they that sort of thing they want to be okay with. Obviously, you can put down a feast, and anyone from other realms can have from that feast and cauldrons, because that's creating like soul-bound items effectively, or getting a buff directly from something. That they're fine with, and that's probably the sort of routes they want to look at in terms of trading useful things. I mean, I suppose when it comes to the tome, we do have the AoE tome version, but you're not just going to put that down for one person because of the cost of them. But it sounds like they're looking at that sort of thing, putting down a thing from which you can get stuff like the flasks and the food buffs from the feast. So those are the main questions that I think came from the Q&A that were of interest. Let me know what you think down below, as always. I hope you enjoyed this. I will be doing shorter vlogs on particular points of these over the next week or two. In particular, one question that was asked, I've not mentioned here, was to do with racials. Unfortunately, it was a classic case. If this was something I wanted to know about in terms of balancing the factions, unfortunately, they asked it in such a poor way that it just allowed Blizzard to come up with an answer that means nothing. But I want to do a video on that one. That's going on Patreon, hopefully today, and on YouTube later in the week. But there will be other ones I'll be doing as well. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with other people. And until next time, I'll see you later.